We're delighted to welcome Dorka Takácsy. She's a researcher at the Centre for Euro-Atlantic Integration and Democracy. Welcome to TVP World, and thank you for taking the time.
Hello, good evening.
So there's obviously a lot of concern in many corridors of power within the European Union, that Hungary is taking its place on the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. But how powerful is that role?
Eventually, the role itself is more of a role of a host. So eventually a country which takes over the rotating presidency of the Council should really put aside its national interests and basically set the agenda and lead the others to reach a compromise. And this is where the problem lies. So eventually many people and many analysts for that end doubt that Hungary is going to be able and willing to set aside national interests and is going to be an honest broker.
So what are the plans of this honest broker for the next half a year?
So altogether, 7 points were announced. Some of these are the flagship projects and flagship topics of Hungary and the Hungarian government from the recent years. Some of them are, however, quite difficult to achieve, especially during such a short time, and are related to family policies and things like that. So eventually, where this presidency might bear challenges is eventually putting on hold, for instance, Ukraine's EU accession talks, because eventually, even though Hungary is not going to be able to do anything, so it's not going to be able to withdraw any measurements or to take any steps back which the European Union has already taken towards Ukraine, being probably not an honest broker and being in charge of the agenda and basically of setting the agenda, Hungary might eventually put on hold these negotiation talks with Ukraine, so it might mean certain delays for Ukraine. But probably this is the worst we might fear.
Understood. Now, we also understand that Ukraine is actually setting up the calendar for its accession talks. And at the moment, it seems as though they don't have any talks organised during Hungary's presidency. Do you think that's deliberate?
Eventually, I think so. So this is where this power or this leverage of Hungary bearing this rotating presidency lies. So let's see what is ahead. But should there be no political willingness, this might definitely be a vulnerability.
Right, so far we're discussing Hungary's stance on the situation in Ukraine, but what about Hungary's plans on the migration crisis?
Well, handling illegal immigration is one of these 7 key points. So this is definitely something which is going to be on the agenda. This is one of the main points and main policies that the Hungarian government likes to talk about, likes to thematize. So I believe that it is surely going to be discussed a lot and is going to be kept on the agenda. However, Hungary itself cannot push any decision through. So Hungary this time has to act as a host and as a broker, not necessarily as a decision maker. So eventually, even though this topic might be on the agenda and is probably going to be a highlighted point on the agenda, this does not mean any real consequences, or it does not determine any consequences. Eventually, it has to navigate all the other parties, all the other countries to negotiate and come to an agreement, come to a consensus. So let's see what is ahead.
Right. It's the first time, is it not, that a country that has been sanctioned by the European Union, that has been fined by the European Union, has actually taken the presidency. Does that surprise you that the rules allow this?
This one does not allow me this much, because this simply points to the fact that this rule eventually does not give endless power to the country bearing this rotating presidency. However, the situation is rather unique. So the Hungarian governmental rhetorics have been building Brussels as kind of the enemy and as a very strong and vivid enemy picture in the last 10 years. And after building this enemy picture for 10 years, it is a really peculiar thing that now Hungary is taking over this presidency and becomes Brussels, even if only for the short period of this 6 months.
Now, this picture, which you're talking about, clearly shows us that Hungary has somewhat fallen off the European track. Now, is the presidency something that can put it back on its pro-European track?
It could mean such a thing, but only should there be political willingness from Hungary's side. And frankly, I do not see this coming, so I would not be super optimistic about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, we saw in the European parliamentary elections, quite strong shows for the right. Now, many of Hungary's policies that they want to at least talk about in this role align with those stands that the right is moving. Could Hungary's presidency speed things up, maybe make these, push these through into European Union law?
I kind of doubt this, and one thing about it is the timing. So altogether, these 6 months start with a rather long summer holiday, a summer break in the European institutions as well. And eventually now, in this post-EP elections period, now basically the power centers, meaning which European parliamentary group is going to be consisting of which parties and so on, these negotiations are still on, which means that basically now time is passing without giving Hungary any occasion of exerting this power probably granted by this rotating presidency. So I would not overestimate the impact Hungary can have.
We've begun by citing the motto for Hungary's presidency. It's make Europe great again. Now, is it supposed to somehow help the chances of the former President Donald Trump to reach his goals in the US?
It's a very good question. However, we clearly see this intention to provocate. And I believe that this is going to be something which this presidency is going to be a reach of. These media hacks, provocations, sometimes probably even trolling. So, for instance, taking the slogan, "Make Europe Great Again," is basically a visible example for that. So frankly, in these 6 months, I expect quite a lot of these. Let's see what is going to be ahead.
Indeed, we shall. Dorka Takácsy, researcher, Centre for Euro-Atlantic Integration and Democracy, thank you very much indeed for sharing your analysis with our audience. Have a good evening.